Hey everybody, what's up? This is Dr. Lily from Psychology Uncensored. So I'm just sitting outside on this amazing, beautiful day. I had some thoughts that I just wanted to share and put out into the universe for anyone who wants to hear it. And the thing that came to mind today was confrontation. So on any given day, I'm working with individuals in the office, and a lot of times situations that they're trying to work through and figure out are things that they connect to confrontation. And I think that there's like a lot of misperceptions out there of what confrontation actually is. So I just want to pause for a moment, put the definition up there. So when we look at this definition of confrontation, we see that it's somewhat specific. So examples that I hear would be, I was at work and, my boss he gets a little close to me. He kind of uses comments that make me feel, icky. I've worked with teens where, their friend sets them up to go on a date and they don't necessarily vibe with the other person, but they don't want to tell the person that because they don't like confrontation. And the reality is that a lot of these situations, they're not confrontation. They're just difficult or uncomfortable conversations. And so there's a big difference between confrontation and uncomfortable, right? So confrontation kind of alludes to some type of hostility and opposing sides, right? And if we're talking about our sibling or our spouse or our best friend, right? We're not opposing forces. We're on the same side. And there's not always hostility involved. It's just a difference of an opinion or a disagreement or some type of communication we want to share. And I think a lot of times people, say to me, well, I don't want to make them feel bad, right? What stopped you from talking with your sister about this issue that's incredibly important to you? I don't want her to feel bad. Okay, so what's the alternative? The alternative is then you're sitting here feeling all these feelings that you didn't necessarily need to feel when you could have just had a conversation, right? We're adding that assumption that if I express who I am, if I express my opinions or my concerns, that other person is going to have a negative feeling in response to that. And that's not necessarily the truth, right? A lot of times if we handle situations appropriately, it brings us closer together. And, a lot of issues can be resolved, and then neither party is having the negative feelings. When we choose to avoid, it leads to a lot of negative feelings. If I'm the avoider, I'm having the negative feelings. But if I'm avoiding, my spouse, he's going to recognize that avoidance. He's going to recognize the difference, and that's going to cause him to have feelings as well. So in situations where we're avoiding, we're creating a space for, some negative feelings. On the flip side, if we avoid, and then we blow up, right? Well, oftentimes we turn around and, we kind of feel shameful. I lost my cool, I have anger issues, any number of things can come up. But so we're having negative feelings from that behavior, but also the person that reacted on to is kind of like, whoa, was that super necessary? That was really harsh. They're having the negative feelings as well. So again, lose-lose situation. When in reality, there's a handful of ways to address the situation really appropriately and have a positive, if nothing else, worst case scenario, a neutral outcome. And difficult and uncomfortable conversations are something that we really could improve in the world. We could improve our skills in the world. And when you think about that, there's a lot of different skills that we could apply to this, and those will be some that I'll teach in upcoming podcasts. But for the purpose of this one, I want to extend your guys' thinking, one, to start to recognize the difference between confrontation and maybe just an uncomfortable conversation. And I want you to think about like what that looks like, and if changing that meaning changes the way that you think about handling certain situations. A lot of times people choose to just avoid these situations, not address them. And when I ask them, hey, like what type of productivity does that bring to your life? Really, the answer is nothing, right? It's not bringing anything productive to our life to continue going to work to a job where we think our boss is treating us inappropriately, or hanging out or connecting with an individual that we don't see ourselves ever moving into a deeper relationship and then potentially leading them on. Same thing, with teens and their parents oftentimes, right? Teens think their parents don't understand them, or they're, treating them a certain way. And they just don't want to have that difficult conversation. Well, a lot of times it's because we avoid it, and then all of a sudden we blow up, right? And then that just makes it all worse. And if we just pause for a minute and we think about, hey, if when I recognize this issue, if I would have just paused and handled it appropriately, what would the outcome have been? When we blow up, that can lead to a whole bunch of things. Stuff comes out of our mouth that we don't necessarily mean. It comes out in anger. And, one thing that I just think it's all important we take a moment to notice is that we can't ever unhear something we've heard. We can't ever unsee something that we've seen. And that often slips our mind. So we avoid, and then we blow up and we turn into this whole person that's really not ourselves to handle a situation, and we handle it poorly. But if we would have just paused to go back and handle that uncomfortable conversation a little bit better, what would that outcome be? I want you guys all just take a moment, and can you just like sift through the days of your life, no pun intended, and come up with some scenarios where, hey, if I would have just paused, what would the outcome be like? And often when we do that, hey, it's kind of this aha moment. But the next time we find ourselves in that place where we need to have an uncomfortable conversation, we don't usually apply the skills at that point either, because we're not used to using them. So we go back to that avoidance, and it just becomes this vicious cycle of avoidance and blowing up. And that can lead to a lot of like disruptions in any type of relationship, whether it's, parent-child, boss-employee, friends, spouses, any of the such. So I want you guys to think about that and see where it takes you. And, I'll be doing some upcoming podcasts on a handful of just different skills of how we can apply the use of skills to these situations and hopefully reduce the amount of times we're avoiding or we're exploding. I hope this video made you guys all pause and just kind of think and reflect a little bit deeper into your lives. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Would love to have the support. And I just hope you guys all have a wonderful day.